I came home on a Tuesday expecting the usual. Mail in the box, maybe a package on the porch, the neighbor's dog barking like it always does. And instead I found a 6-foot wall cutting straight through my backyard like somebody had taken a ruler and decided my property didn't matter anymore. Yeah, just like that. Clean line, brand new wood, still smelling fresh, posts sunk deep like they planned this to last. And for a second I honestly thought I was losing my mind, like maybe I'd misremembered where my own yard ended. But then I saw it. The corner of my garden bed, crushed under one of those posts. Tomatoes I'd been growing for weeks, just gone. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. Somebody made a decision and didn't bother to tell me. So I walked the line, slow, counting steps like that would somehow make it make sense. And the deeper I went, the worse it got. The fence wasn't just close to my boundary. It was inside it. Noticeably inside it. Like they didn't even try to hide it. Now, I bought this place back in 2019, small subdivision. We'll call it Oak Ridge Commons. Quiet, predictable. HOA that mostly sent emails about lawn height and trash bins. Nothing crazy. Until Derek showed up. Derek was the kind of guy who smiled too much when he talked about community standards, like he enjoyed the idea of telling other people what to do. And the second he became HOA president, things started changing. New rules, new inspections, and then this whole thing about securing the shared perimeter along the west side. Funny thing is, nobody on that side, including me, ever got asked. So I'm standing there in my own backyard, staring at this fence like it's some kind of bad joke, and I pull out my phone and call Derek, trying to keep it calm, because maybe, just maybe, there's an explanation. He picks up on the second ring, voice all casual, like I just interrupted his dinner. Hey, Derek, quick question, there's a fence in my yard, and I'm pretty sure it's on my property. There's this pause, just long enough to feel intentional. Our contractor measured everything. He says, real smooth, like he's reading from a script. So I doubt that's the case. And right there, that tone, that's when I knew this wasn't going to be simple. I've got a survey from when I bought the house. I tell him, still steady. And this fence is definitely over the line. Another pause, shorter this time, like he's already losing interest. Well, it looks right to me, he says, and I swear I can hear him shrug through the phone. Sometimes those surveys are off. You might want to just let it go. Let it go? Yeah, no. I ask him to send me whatever measurements their contractor used. Nothing fancy, just proof, something we can compare, but he doesn't answer that part. Just changes the subject, says he's busy, we'll circle back, and then hangs up before I can push it. That night, I walked the line again, slower this time, flashlight in hand, checking every angle like I was trying to catch the fence in a lie. And the more I looked, the clearer it got. This wasn't close. This wasn't debatable. It was wrong. So I did what anyone trying to be reasonable would do. I wrote to the HOA, formal request, laid everything out, asked them to pause and bring in an independent surveyor before things escalated. No response. A week later, I sent another one, more direct this time. Same request, same calm tone, still giving them an easy out. Nothing. And that silence, that's what really got to me. Because silence like that isn't confusion, it's a choice. It's someone deciding they don't have to answer you. Meanwhile, that fence is just sitting there every day, casting this shadow across my yard like a reminder. So I stopped waiting. I hired my own licensed surveyor, guy named Collins. Older, no nonsense, the kind of person who's seen every property dispute you can imagine. And he shows up with his equipment, takes his time, measures everything twice, then calls me over. He doesn't sugarcoat it. They're over your line, he says, pointing straight at the fence, about 14 inches, all the way down. 14 inches, not a rounding error, not a guess, a full foot, and then some. And suddenly everything Derek said starts sounding a lot less like confidence and a lot more like something else. I get the official report, stamped, signed, all the details laid out clean, and I send it to the HOA along with a notice. This structure is on my property. It doesn't have a permit on record, and they've got 21 days to fix it before I take further action. 21 days. Plenty of time to do the right thing. And you'd think, at that point, they'd step in, maybe apologize, maybe blame the contractor, move the fence and call it a day. But no, nothing changes. No calls, no emails, no attempt to fix anything. Just that fence, still there. And that's when it stopped being about a misunderstanding and started becoming something else entirely. Something intentional. Something that was going to need more than polite emails to resolve. Because here's the thing about people like Derek. They count on you backing down. They count on you deciding it's not worth the trouble. They count on that moment where you look at the situation and think, maybe I'll just let it go. But I wasn't going to do that. Not this time. Not over something that was mine. And definitely not after being told, so casually, to just ignore it. Because once someone shows you they're willing to take a foot of your land without asking, you start wondering how much more they'd take if you let them. And that question, that's what kept me up that week. So yeah, I gave them their 21 days. But I also started making other plans. All right, let me pause the story for a second, because this part right here, this is where a lot of people get it wrong. And honestly, it's exactly what HOAs like Derek's are counting on. According to standard procedure, an HOA doesn't just get to build on or modify property boundaries because it looks right. There's a process, documented approvals, surveys, permits, and most importantly, homeowner notification, especially when it involves anything near a private lot line. From a legal perspective, what happened here is called an encroachment. Basically, someone placing a structure on land that isn't theirs, and that's not just a minor issue, that's a liability. If left unchallenged, it can actually create arguments later about usage rights or even adverse possession in extreme cases. Yeah, meaning if you ignore it long enough, someone might try to claim it. And this is where it gets interesting, because this is a psychological trap. Derek didn't need to prove he was right. He just needed me to doubt myself long enough to walk away. The dismissive tone, the just let it go, the silence after my requests, that's not laziness, that's strategy. Because most people don't push back. They second guess, they avoid conflict, they choose peace over principle. And that's exactly how situations like this escalate without anyone noticing. So yeah, 21 days. That was the number I gave them. Not because I expected anything to change, but because I wanted everything clean, documented, undeniable. No shortcuts, no gray areas, just a straight line from problem to consequence. Day 1 passed, nothing. Day 5, still nothing. By day 10, I'd already stopped checking my email like I was waiting for an apology that was never coming. And here's the weird part. Somewhere around that second week, the frustration kind of settled into something quieter, more focused, like the moment you stop hoping someone will do the right thing and start preparing for what happens when they don't. So I made the call. I reached out to an attorney, local guy, real estate disputes, someone who didn't waste time with fluff, and I laid everything out. The fence, the survey, the ignored notices, all of it. He listened, asked a few questions, then leaned back and said something that stuck with me. You've already done the hard part. You documented everything. Now it's just about follow-through. No drama, no big speech, just follow through. So we filed. Petitioned the court for authorization to remove the encroachment, included the survey, the correspondence, or lack of it, and the notice I'd given them. Everything lined up exactly the way it needed to be. And here's the thing. Once it hits that stage, it's not about opinions anymore. It's not Derek saying, it looks right, versus me saying, it's not. It's facts. Lines on paper. Measurements that don't care about anyone's ego. The order came through faster than I expected. Clean, direct, no ambiguity. I had the right to remove any structure on my property. That was it. No debate left. So I scheduled the removal. Thursday morning, early. Not because I was trying to make a scene, but because I wanted it done before anyone could try to turn it into one. The crew showed up just after 8. Pickup truck, small excavator in tow, the kind of machine that looks almost polite until it starts moving dirt. The operator hops out, walks the line with me, looks at the survey markers, then glances at the fence. Yeah, he says, almost casually, that's definitely yours. And just like that, we're not talking about maybe anymore. Now here's where it gets cinematic. Because right as they're unloading the excavator, I see movement across the street. Derek, standing in his driveway, arms crossed. That same tight expression I remember from our phone call. Like he's already decided how this is going to go. Like he still thinks this is something he can control. He walks over, not fast, not slow, deliberate. What's going on? He asks, even though he already knows. I keep it simple. Removing the fence from my property. There's a pause, and you can almost hear the gears turning in his head. You can't just do that, he says, sharper now, less composed. That's HOA property. And this is the moment, the one where, in a different version of this story, things turn into an argument. Voices raised, neighbors watching, everyone trying to win the loudest. But that's not what happened, because I didn't argue. I just handed him a copy of the court order. And I watched his expression change. Not dramatically, not all at once, but enough. That slight shift when someone realizes the conversation they thought they were having is already over. He scans it, jaw tightening. This isn't over, he mutters, but it sounds different now. Less like a threat, more like habit. I don't respond. Because there's nothing left to say. I nod to the operator, and the machine starts. Now, if you've never seen an excavator pull out fence posts, let me paint the picture. It doesn't rush, it doesn't struggle, it just grips, lifts, and removes, like the ground never had a say in the matter. The first post comes out clean, dirt falling away in chunks. Then the second, then the third, each one faster than the last. And Derek just stands there, watching, arms still crossed, but tighter now, like he's holding on to something that's already slipping. No shouting, no dramatic intervention, just silence. 40 minutes. That's all it took. 40 minutes to undo something that probably took them a full day to install. By the time the crew finished, the fence line was gone. Just a series of holes and disturbed soil where it used to be, like it had never belonged there in the first place. The operator shuts off the machine, hops down, wipes his hands. All set, he says. And just like that, it's over. Or at least, the visible part of it is. Because what came next, that's where things really settled. The HOA didn't fight the order, didn't appeal, didn't try to rebuild in the same spot. Instead, they did what they should have done from the beginning. They commissioned a full boundary survey of the entire west side. This time independent, documented, no shortcuts. They pulled permits. They rebuilt the fence, correctly. 14 inches over. Exactly where it should have been the first time. And then came the part one don't think Derek ever expected. The cost. Because it wasn't just the rebuild. It was the survey, the legal fees, the court filing, my attorney, my surveyor. Just over $6,000. Paid out of HOA reserves. Which, if you've ever lived in one, you know what that means. That's everyone's money. Every homeowner. Contributing to fix a mistake that never should have happened. And here's the thing. Nobody knocked on my door to complain. Nobody asked me to work it out quietly after the fact. Because once it's that clear, once it's documented, once the outcome is that obvious, there's not really anything left to argue about. Except maybe how it happened in the first place. Derek still lives 3 houses down. Same house, same driveway. But things are different now. He doesn't wave, doesn't stop to talk. And honestly, I don't think it's about me. I think it's about what that moment represented. Because for a while there, he was the guy making decisions, setting boundaries, literally, and expecting everyone else to fall in line. And then, in less than an hour, he had to stand there and watch those decisions get pulled out of the ground one post at a time. No debate, no control, just consequences. And maybe that's the part people don't talk about enough. It's not the money. It's not even the fence. It's that moment where someone realizes they pushed too far, and it didn't work. So yeah, the yard's back to normal now. Garden replanted, line clear, everything where it's supposed to be. Like nothing ever happened. Except, you don't really forget something like that. Not the fence, not the silence, and definitely not the way it all ended. So what do you actually take away from something like this? Because on the surface, yeah, it's a story about a fence, a stubborn HOA president, and a guy who refused to back down. But underneath that, there's a pattern here, something that shows up way more often than people realize. The lesson here is, boundaries only matter if you're willing to defend them. And I don't just mean property lines. I mean any situation where someone quietly tests how much they can take before you react. Because that's usually how it starts. Not with something huge, but with something small enough to question, small enough to make you hesitate. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'll just let it go. And that hesitation, that's the opening. Because people like Derek, they don't usually come in loud and obvious. They come in confident, dismissive, like they've already decided the outcome and you're just catching up. And if you accept that frame, even for a second, you're already playing their game. This is a psychological trap. It's not about proving they're right. It's about making you unsure enough that you stop pushing, because uncertainty is exhausting. Conflict is uncomfortable. And most people would rather protect their peace than challenge something that feels just barely wrong. But here's the flip side. From a legal perspective, the system actually works if you use it properly. And I know that sounds like something you hear and immediately doubt, because most of us assume legal action means stress, time, money, and yeah, it can. But what made the difference here wasn't aggression, it was structure. Everything was documented. Everything was measured. Everything followed a clear process. According to standard procedure, I gave notice. I allowed time to respond. I created a paper trail that showed I wasn't the one escalating. I was the one trying to resolve it. And that matters. Because when things finally reached the point where a decision had to be made, it wasn't about who was louder or more confident. It was about who had done things the right way. That's the part people skip. They either jump straight to confrontation, emotional, reactive, or they avoid it completely. And both of those paths usually end the same way: messy, unresolved, frustrating. But there's a middle ground. Calm, methodical, patient. And yeah, it doesn't feel as satisfying in the moment. It's slower, quieter, but it builds something stronger. It builds leverage. And once you have that, you don't need to argue. You don't need to convince anyone. You just act. Now here's something else that doesn't get talked about enough. This wasn't just about Derek making a bad call. This was about a system that let him think he could. Because HOAs, by design, operate on a mix of authority and assumption. They rely on the idea that most homeowners won't challenge decisions, especially when those decisions come wrapped in language like community benefit or standard enforcement. And most of the time, that assumption holds. People comply. They don't ask for measurements. They don't request documentation. They don't hire surveyors. And over time, that lack of pushback becomes permission, not official permission, but practical permission. The kind that grows quietly until someone finally says, "No, that's not okay." And when that happens, it feels disruptive. Not because it's wrong, but because it breaks a pattern everyone else got used to. So if you're watching this and thinking, "Okay, but would I actually go that far over a fence?" That's the wrong question. The better question is, where's your line? Not the physical one, the personal one. At what point do you stop giving the benefit of the doubt and start asking for proof? At what point do you stop hoping someone will fix it and start making sure they do? Because the truth is, situations like this don't resolve themselves. They drift. They sit. They become the new normal. Until one day, you look at something that used to be yours, your space, your rights, your say, and realize it's been slowly redefined without you ever agreeing to it. And by then, it's a lot harder to undo. So yeah, I waited the 21 days. Not because I believed they'd fix it, but because I wanted to know, without a doubt, that when I moved forward, I wasn't skipping steps. I wasn't reacting. I was finishing something they chose to ignore. And that distinction, that's everything. Because it's the difference between escalation and resolution, between emotion and outcome, between hoping things change and making sure they do. So now I'll throw it back to you. Honestly, would you have waited the full 21 days? Or would you have called the attorney the moment you saw that fence go up? And more importantly, where would you draw the line? If it was your yard, your space, your boundary being tested, because one way or another, everyone gets that moment eventually. The question is, what do you do when it shows up?